So the story so far. Smart Planning started in July 2016. We were given $25 million to embark on a program of reform for Victoria's planning system. And there were 6 sort of underlying key principles that we tried to apply to both the system stream, which is the IT stream, and the rules and policy stream, which is the regulatory side of things. So what we tried to achieve is really keeping true to these principles, and as far as the system side goes, a real sort of digital uplift for the planning system in a way that sort of utilises modern technology. And the rules and policy side really focusing on streamlining and fixing up at a state level, if you like, the rules around planning and the VPP. So along the way, there have been many things that we've delivered. There have been 6 individual VC amendments and a lot of technical deliveries, and we'll be talking about those in a bit more detail. But it's been a very busy 2 years, and not unusually in these sorts of programs, a lot has happened in the last 6 months. So I'll give you an overview of what we've delivered on the digital side, and one of the key things that we've tried to focus on with that is making sure we're building a platform for the future. So we didn't want to introduce technology that was a dead end, that couldn't be extended later on. So we've really been conscious of the fact that the technology we've used and the functionality we've introduced is something that can be then extended quite easily for future needs. And we're already doing some of that under stage 3. So specifically what we've done, number of things, new portal. So about 18 months ago, we introduced at planning.vic.gov.au a single entry point for planning information services and tools for Victoria. And the website is used by about 4 million people a year. There's 4 million hits a year, which makes it one of the most used state government websites. So we're very conscious of the fact that we could use that as an opportunity to provide a lot of information through that single point, and as an entry point for a lot of the other digital reforms that we've been introducing as part of the program. One of the tools we've introduced is VicPlan, which I mentioned before, and you will be getting an interactive demonstration of that later. But that is started off as being the tool for zones and overlays, associated rules, and it's actually expanded to be much more than that with recent enhancements that went in a couple of months ago. So I won't talk about that in detail because you'll get a good view of that later on. We've also refreshed the planning report, so for the first time it actually includes all the relevant information about planning for a particular property. So that's accessible through the tool as well, and just through the VicPlan mapping tool we're getting 6,000 downloads of that a week, so it's something that's heavily utilised. We've also introduced the concept of an online library, a source library for searching for and accessing, downloading documents relating to planning, incorporated documents and so forth. So we've started off with the 120 most used documents and added those to the site, and they're all searchable through that facility. I think the oldest document there is from 1929, so we've actually done a lot of work in actually locating a lot of these documents and making sure they're available in digital form. And progressively we're adding more documents to the library, so it's over 150 now, but it's a constant process of locating these documents and making them available through that portal, which again is in keeping with that principle of trying to make as much information accessible through the internet as possible. We've also introduced a platform called Permits Online, which can handle applications for different types of permits. So we've started off with ministerial permits, and the ability there is to be able to lodge an application, pay for it, track it, and process it all online. And that's working today and being used by any applicant who wants to lodge an application for a ministerial permit. Now over time that's going to be expanded to include other types of permits. So in the next 9 or 10 months we'll be introducing heritage permits, and we'll also be introducing EESs, or environmental effect statements, in there as well. But it's a good example of, again, building a platform that we can extend into the future using modern technology that's quite extendable. One of the main system changes or systems we've introduced, which and this one in particular has a large impact on local councils, is the Amendment Tracking System, or ATS. So that was introduced in June and is being used by all councils for lodging applications for planning scheme amendments, again paying for them, tracking them, and recently it's been expanded to include an authoring system for the drafting of planning scheme amendments, which Rodney will talk about in more detail later. So that was an important step forward because it really provides a basis for the digitisation of planning schemes, and ultimately a big step towards a fully digital planning system. So with all these new digital tools and systems that we've introduced comes a need to support them, and so a special support team's been developed and set up within the department specifically for planning information systems. There's our friendly team there. They are sort of living, breathing human beings. If you do call the support number, you will get to speak to one of them. The email address there for any queries or comments as well is monitored daily. So if you do send an email query, and the team are very serious about learning about any potential enhancements that could be made to any of these systems and tools, any sort of suggestions or feedback, it's looked at on a regular basis, and ultimately a lot of those things will go into future enhancements to the systems. So that team will be expanded as we expand in terms of delivering more systems and tools. So we'll always be very conscious of providing an adequate level of support to users of the system, in this case, you know, in a majority, the local councils. Any questions about the stage 1 and stage 2 digital deliveries before we move on to talk about rules and policy?